Friend of the channel, Mozza, tweeted this the other day. In other news, is this potentially our most embarrassing season of European football in years? Celtic Rangers and Hearts aren't exactly flying the flag proudly. Just too big a quality gap there this season. And I have been thinking of doing another video like this over the past few days, especially last night after Hearts' result in Italy against Fiorentina. I thought I needed to do a new video just covering why Scottish teams have been so bad in Europe this season. I actually did make a really in-depth video this time last year. I think I uploaded it on the 5th of October, where I titled the video, Why Are Scottish Teams So Bad in Europe? Rangers went on to finish in the Europa League final that season, but I think we can all agree that that was an anomaly based on what's happened this season, based on what happened to all the other Scottish teams last season and all the other Scottish teams in the previous few seasons before as well. Scottish teams in Europe are underperforming drastically, and the first thing I want to show you is the coefficient rankings for all the countries. So obviously we all know in Scotland that the coefficient rose over the last year or so, and that now means that the champions of Scotland go straight into the Champions League group stage. But as you can see from the 2022/23 column, they have got a worse season score this season. We'll have to go all the way down to Greece in 19th to find a team as bad as what Scotland have been this year in Europe. And I mean, just look at some of the teams around them. We've got Belgium, who are doing really well this season. Obviously, Club Brugge, Bruges to you and I. In the UK are doing really well. They got through their group stage of the Champions League. And they've not got loads of funds. Look at Portugal above Scotland. Belgium, obviously, like I say. Austria closing the gap, as could Serbia as well. So Scottish teams have been really letting the country down in Europe this season, and we're going to be talking about each one in the group stage. Firstly, just want to touch on Dundee United. Dundee United obviously went out to AZ Alkmaar, who are currently top of the Eredivisie. I don't think when the season started we knew how good AZ Alkmaar were going to be, but they are currently above Ajax and top of the tree in Holland. And let's also talk about Motherwell. They went out to Sligo, who are currently 5th in the Irish League. We talk about the gap in wealth as some sort of excuse for Celtic and Rangers in the Champions League, which it is, I guess, in part. But look at Motherwell. If that was the only reason why Rangers and Celtic are underperforming, then Motherwell should have absolutely wiped the floor with Sligo, as we know. But they didn't. They lost at the first attempt, and it was a really awful showing for Motherwell in Europe, as it was for like all teams in Europe and Scotland. I'm not just picking on Motherwell. I think they've all been pretty poor, except maybe, like I say, Dundee United. The 7-0 out in Holland was pretty poor, let's be honest. But they are top of their respective leagues, so we can kind of give them a little bit of leeway. So, moving on to Hearts, I've got a few notes for me today for this video. I thought I'd just write a few things down and sort of go through them with you guys and show you a few stats as well. It doesn't make for pretty reading, especially for Hearts, who finished 3rd in Scotland last year with one of the lowest third points tallies for a long time. But do remember, though, that Hearts just a few years ago were obviously in the Championship in Scotland. We've kind of got to take that into account. I think they were a Championship team like 2 years ago. So just remember that when you're thinking about Hearts. But I still think they should have done better in Europe this season. There's not a huge amount of points between the bottom team in the Premiership and the 3rd team in the Premiership in Scotland. So it is kind of interchangeable, I feel like. But surely there's a team that can kick on and sort of pull away from the rest of the pack in a way. Hearts, actually, remember, they were in the Europa League, but they lost their qualifier against Zurich and are now in the Europa Conference League, and look like they will be going out of that with a bit of a whimper. Obviously, Fiorentina, Istanbul, Başakşehir, good teams, but I think Fiorentina are lower mid-table right now around teams like Empoli in the Serie A. Do we not expect Scottish, like the best Scottish teams, to be beating teams who are 13th in their respective leagues? I think we probably would. So the only worst team defensively, other than Hearts, in the whole Europa Conference League is Steaua Bucharest, who are currently 12th in Romania. Hearts have conceded 12 in 4 games. Steaua Bucharest have conceded 13. And there's only one other team who have conceded double figures, and that is Austria Vienna, Austria, Wien, from Austria, obviously, in Vienna, the capital city there. So Hearts have one of the worst defensive records in the worst European competition. Remember, the Conference League is the third tier of European football. I'm not an English fan, and I know my subscribers know this who think that the Scottish League's a farmers' league. I have huge respect for the Scottish League because they're 8th in the coefficient. That could change, obviously, given how well some of the teams below them are doing this season. But I'm not one of these farmers' leagues guys. But the way and I'm not just on here to take the piss. I really, really want the Scottish teams to do well in Europe. And I feel like the performances have kind of given fuel to people down south to say those things about Scottish football. But let's have a quick look at Transfer Market. I'm going to use Transfer Market to tell you about like the value of the squads and stuff. Hearts beat RFS, the team from Riga, away. So it's a good result for Hearts. The only win in the European group stage so far for a Scottish team, despite Celtic and Rangers both playing in Europe as well. And Hearts have a value of around double, 13.8 million versus 7.1 million of Riga. And I know these Transfer Market value things, they're not the be-all and end-all when describing a squad and how good they are, but it does go some way to sort of prove where they sort of fall within European football and the rankings and the like. So yeah, Hearts beat RFS or Riga, and they've got a squad that's worth about double according to this. But if we look at Silkeborg, who are in a fairly tough group, okay, we said Steaua Bucharest aren't very good, they are in their group, but Anderlecht are in their group, and West Ham are in their group as well. Silkeborg, they got 6 points, and they're 12th in their group. They've scored 12 goals. Sorry, they're second in their group, and they've scored 12 goals. Silkeborg, they are worth 3 million, nearly 4 million less than Hearts. So there's a team in the Europa Conference League who's worth less than Hearts. They're from Denmark, yet they're performing way better. So I think the argument of, Scottish teams, they're competing against teams who have got a lot of money, it doesn't always wash, and that is an example of that. And actually, I do just want to point out that Hearts actually aren't out of it yet. They have got 3 points, and they could still come second, I do believe, if I look at their group. Yeah, they could, but they'll need Fiorentina to lose, and they'll need a few things to go their way, but yeah, it's looking very unlikely that Hearts will go through. Hearts fans, let me know why in the comment section below. Right, we're going to talk about Rangers last, and we're going to talk about Celtic just now. So as I showed you with the other group, with Hearts, I compared Hearts to Riga. Let's compare Celtic to Shakhtar, shall we? Shakhtar, who are currently obviously going through a lot of issues off the pitch. They're not even playing their games in Ukraine for obvious reasons. They have very few, if any, foreign players. All the players are Ukrainian. So, again, some huge issues that Shakhtar are having to deal with off the pitch. However, they're 4 points ahead of Celtic. They have a goal difference of 2. Celtic have a goal difference of -7. And if we compare the value of the two squads on Transfer Market, again, Shakhtar, 80 million, Celtic 97 million. So again, the whole thing of, we're competing against teams. And let's look at Red Bull Leipzig, to be fair, 436 million. Okay, Celtic lost 2-0 to Red Bull Leipzig the other day, who are worth over 4 times, according to this website, what Celtic worth. We can understand losing 2-0 to a team that's worth over 4 times what you're worth. But again, as I've said with a few of the teams in the Conference League or Hearts, as I showed you with Shakhtar, Celtic should, on paper, be better than Shakhtar in terms of the value of their squad and also in terms of stability. Again, Shakhtar playing their games in Poland and having a squad that's having to deal with a lot mentally, of course, off the pitch as well, with what's happening in their nation. So Celtic are way better set up to win games of football. They've got the atmosphere of Celtic Park as well, this famous stadium that has the atmosphere. Why has it gone so wrong for Celtic in the Champions League? Is it Ange Postecoglou and his tactics of trying to play the same every game? I fully respect the way he's tried to play in the Champions League, expansive passing play. Maybe he should have tailored it a little bit differently in those games to try and be a bit tighter. I'm not sure. Again, Celtic fans, I put it to you like I did with Hearts. Why has it gone so wrong in Europe? And if we look at the table again, they're 4 points behind Shakhtar currently, who are third. Remember with Hearts, whoever finishes third and fourth goes straight out. It's the bottom competition in Europe, of course, the Conference League. There's nothing to drop into. Celtic could still finish in third position and drop down to the Europa League, it's looking fairly unlikely. Their last game is at the Bernabeu, so you can expect them to lose that, which means even if they beat Shakhtar at home, they still won't reach the points tally that Shakhtar currently have. Okay, Red Bull Leipzig and Real Madrid are two fantastic teams, don't get me wrong. Remember, Rangers knocked out Red Bull Leipzig from the Europa League semi-final last season. And we've spoken about the comparisons between Celtic and Shakhtar as well. I still think Celtic should have done a lot better. In my opinion, it's very disappointing how they've done. Again, I want all Scottish teams to do well in Europe, and I'm sad from a personal standpoint that I probably won't be able to go and watch any European football post-Christmas this season. I hope I'm proved wrong, and I'll happily eat some humble pie if I am wrong. But just looking through the groups, Celtic have 1 point. I'm looking through all the groups in the Champions League right now. Rangers, we're coming on to them, have no points. Victoria Pilsen have no points, and then Celtic have 1 point. Celtic are the third worst performing team in terms of points. Maccabi Haifa, who are in a group of Juventus, PSG and Benfica, have triple the amounts of points that Celtic have. They got 3 points. Copenhagen, who are in with Sevilla, Dortmund and Man City, have 2 points, double the amount of Celtic. Dinamo Zagreb have 4 points. Eintracht Frankfurt, 4 points. Leverkusen are in a tough group, 3 points. Celtic, really disappointing for me this season. Again, what has gone wrong? Let me know in the comment section below. I think it was after the first game, the 4-0 loss against Ajax, when Giovanni Van Bronckhorst came out and said, how are Rangers supposed to compete with these teams that have obviously got so much more money than them? And yes, he's true. So let's have a look at what he's true in a way, but not completely. And I will be saying why he's wrong in just a second. Ajax are worth just over double what Rangers are worth. Napoli are worth 4 times, according to Transfer Market. 432 million for Napoli, 266 million for Ajax, 114 million for Rangers. So it's not a huge gap. Ajax are double, Napoli are 4 times. But Ajax beat Rangers 4-0 in the Champions League, and they're double as good, right? 4-0, double as good. That is where sort of Giovanni Van Bronckhorst was like, we can't compete. They're worth too much money. They're doubly as good in terms of their transfer market value on this website, and they lost 4-0. But Rangers also beat St Mirren 4-0 last season, and if we look at their value, 7 million, that is a 16 times bigger value jump from St Mirren to Rangers, and Rangers only won 4-0. By the markers of the Ajax game, Rangers should be winning every single game in the Premiership by 10 goals to 0, basically. And so that's why that argument doesn't work. There's always going to be teams that have less money, but you still have to go out and you still have to compete. Money shouldn't be a factor in why they conceded the first goal to Liverpool. Fashion Sakala just didn't jump and clear the ball. Tau wasn't strong enough, and Firmino was just in between the both of them, and it was a simple header and a goal. It was such an easy goal to concede. I know Liverpool have loads of quality. When Salah came off the bench, when you can bring a player on fresh like that when the rest of the defence are tired, then I understand why you might ship a few goals, but some of those goals were so easy, and it looked like Rangers just gave up. They were brilliant in the first 30 minutes. Why couldn't they do it for the full 90? It really, really annoys me. They spent all that money on Yilmaz, can't get in the team, but people will say that Barisic has been poor this season. I know they've got a few injury worries at centre-back. John Souttar, they bring in a guy who's notoriously injured. I think he's a fantastic player. If it wasn't for his performance in the cup final for Hearts, Rangers probably wouldn't have got it to extra time. They'd have won it in the 90s. Souttar was incredible in that game, but we know how injury prone he is. The same with Ben Davies, and Connor Goldson went off the other day. It looks like it's going to have to be King and maybe Sands at centre-back. They let Balogun go. Helander's always injured, it seems, as well. So I just think that recruitment-wise, it's been poor with some of the decisions that they've made. Of course it has. But if they can play so well in the 30 minutes against Liverpool and go 1-0 up, why can't they do it for 90? Their heads dropped, and it seemed like they didn't want it the other night. I think it's a mentality thing with the teams in Scotland, with Rangers, with Celtic, with Hearts, with Dundee United and with Motherwell. I don't know what it is in their heads, but I think they think they're going to lose before they even step out onto the pitch. This is an incredibly telling stat. So we spoke about in the Celtic section how they've got 1 point and a few teams who have got 0. The only teams with no points in the Champions League, this makes me really annoyed. The only teams with no points in the Champions League, and I know Rangers have played tough teams, don't get me wrong. It's a hard group, Napoli, Liverpool, Ajax. But to have no points in 4 games and to have conceded the same amount as Victoria Pilsen is so bad, because Victoria Pilsen are in the same group as Inter Milan, Barcelona and Bayern Munich. And they have conceded as many as Rangers and scored more goals. Rangers have let in 16 and scored 1. Victoria Pilsen have let in 16 and scored 3. I hate this whole argument of all money. Let's see how much Victoria Pilsen are worth in transfer market. 25 million compared to Rangers 114 million. So they've been able to compete better with Bayern, Inter Milan and Barcelona than Rangers have with their group as well. So yeah, context is everything. And I know James Sands getting sent off against Napoli at that crucial moment probably didn't help. But I think Rangers have underperformed massively, especially if you consider how great the atmosphere is at Ibrox. That's a big advantage that teams like Napoli and Ajax, I don't believe they have an atmosphere as good as Ibrox on a European night. And look how well Rangers did last season against teams like Dortmund, Red Bull Leipzig, teams that were worth a lot more in better leagues, and they still beat them because maybe they had the mentality that they could. Unlike this season, where I feel like they feel as if they're defeated. There's a lot going on off the pitch with Rangers. I see on Twitter about the board, and I've tried to buy tickets through the MyJers thing. I'm a MyJers member, and it never works. You put a ticket in your basket and it's awful. There's things at the top of the club that aren't right, and I do sometimes think that filters down. We've seen it with Manchester United and the Glazers, and I do also believe that things like the ticket office at Rangers are awful. If there's things off the pitch that are being done second rate, I do also feel like it does transfer to the players. And yeah, like I say, the ticket office at Ibrox is shocking for a team that is in the Champions League. It shouldn't be like that. It should be nicer and newer. I know the Edmonton House is coming, but if that's the reason why they haven't signed players is because they're building a new museum, then, you know, that's something to be sort of looked at, I suppose. And people aren't happy with the board. And again, I want to know from you guys, the fans, let me know in the comment section below why you think it's gone so wrong. But I just wanted to get these opinions out of me. I'm really frustrated and really annoyed and really disappointed and upset that Scottish teams haven't done as well in Europe. Rangers flew the flag so well for Scottish teams last year and put Scottish football back on the map, but now it's sort of been erased off a little bit with how poor they've been. And like I say, it does add fuel to the fire down south for people who want to call it a Farmers League. Celtic and Rangers have got 1 point between them in the Champions League this year, and Maccabi Haifa have 3 points. That says it all, doesn't it? And Hearts are going to crash out the Conference League probably. It's not all completely done yet. We are still on match day 4, but I'm just at a loss with what to say. It's really, really disappointing. I think the fans deserve better from these clubs when it comes to Europe. So, yeah, I feel for you guys. I really do, the fans of these clubs. I'm not coming on here to bash Scottish football. I don't think anyone champions Scottish football who isn't Scottish quite like I do. I love it so much. I want all the teams to do really, really well. So, yeah, again, let me know what you think in the comment section below. I've probably rambled on for way too long now. Please do hit that like button. Please do subscribe if you're new. I'm actually getting out of Scotland for the next few weeks. I'm going down to England and Wales as well to cover some teams that I've not yet seen on the channel. So really excited to bring you those videos. I'll leave some videos on screen. Please do click on one to carry on watching. Thank you very much, and I'll see you in the next one.